Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you very much. Yes, so as I said, my name is Nicolette and I'm a third year student midwife. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about just my pathway into midwifery and my experiences thus far as a student midwife, really. So I actually have a background in psychology. And so after sixth form, I did 1 year of my psychology degree and I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. I found it very interesting. But I really did just feel called to midwifery. And it was just this thing in my back of my head that I knew this is what I need to do. So this kind of process happened very quickly for me. So I decided to apply for midwifery and it was all quite fast. So I applied through clearing, which if anyone doesn't know, it's like a second application round outside of the normal application season where you can apply. So I got a personal statement, I got a reference, and I applied for UCAS to do my course. And now because my A-levels were fairly recent and within subjects that were quite relevant to midwifery, like biology, I didn't need to do an access course, but that's another option that other people do go through as well. So while on the topic of personal statements, I would say that for any listeners who are prospective midwifery students, a particular tip I would give for personal statement writing is that try to incorporate any previous life experiences that you've gained, even if you've not had work experience in a hospital, because I know it's hard to get those sometimes. Any like public facing roles that you've had life experience doing can be relevant to midwifery. So try in your personal statement to link those back. If you've worked in retail, if you've worked in hospitality, you've had to explain concepts and of your services to the public. You've had to show professionalism. You've had to deal with conflict resolution, maybe. And those things are all things that we do in midwifery practice when you're not only just caring for the women or birthing person in your care, you're looking after their family members, their birth partners. You're dealing a lot with the public. So try and integrate that into your personal statement a little bit. Another thing I would mention is that I had to interview to get onto the midwifery course. And in your interviews, they kind of delve into what you understand the role of the midwife to be and what different professionals that you may work with in your midwifery career. So they try to make sure that you have a full understanding of the role of the midwife. So now I'm going to talk a bit about my current midwifery experience. And honestly, it has been a long journey. And it's been a long journey to self-confidence a lot of the time. So as a student who trained during the COVID times, I can say that our education was quite interrupted by the current world affairs. And as a first year, trying to, get to grips on normal intrapartum care, it's not easy when there's the added complexity of a person in your care being COVID positive potentially. So just trying to understand how the normality is when it's such a not normal time, it can be a bit difficult. So I would say it was daunting at the start. And even just learning your way around the hospital, knowing where everything is, it takes a while. So if someone asks you to go and get something or go and get this and you don't know where that is, it can be a problem. So I did want to emphasize that whenever you start a new placement area, try to ask for a brief orientation and where emergency equipment is, or if there isn't even time for that, just as soon as you even enter a room, mentally scan the room, see where the towels are kept, where the stuff for taking blood is kept. Is there any relevant equipment that you might need in the room? And if it's not, can I get it now rather than when it might be, I need to get this now in an emergency style situation. So just try and prepare in those things so that you're not doing it in a rush. Another example of that is they have those drawers that are there are 5 drawers to them and they have a lot of things in them. Like the first drawer might have blood bottles, the second drawer might have syringes and needles, the third drawer might have stuff for cannulation. So someone might say, oh, go and get a 10 ml syringe, and you're faffing about searching through all the drawers, not knowing which one they're in. So I would say just take a while when you enter the room to scan the location of things that are commonly asked for items, so that in an emergency when someone needs something, you're not rummaging around trying to find them. So that's just a tip that I'd say for a newly starting student midwife. So like I was saying, I'm definitely still on the journey of developing confidence as a student. And I think that these things come with putting yourself out there more. For for every experience that you are offered, you need to take it and you need to try and learn through doing, because you can't fully learn something from a textbook. I'm the kind of person that really loves to try and read about something and try to understand everything I can from the background before I start a situation. But that's not how midwifery always is. Of course, you need to have contextual knowledge and understand things around the area, but you need to kind of just go for it sometimes and believe yourself and get involved and challenge yourself every day. And there will still be moments where you're like, I still don't know this, or I still can't do that. But ultimately, you know, the way you can see that you truly are developing is reflection. And I know it might sound like an overused word in midwifery, but it really is important to do. And I found it a really important skill over the course of my midwifery degree so far. So this is a particular tip I learned from my personal tutor, Emily, who's helped me so much throughout this year. And she told me to do a reflection at the end of each midwifery degree, or even more regular than that. And you can really see when you do that how much you're progressing. So if you ever have those self-doubt thoughts, oh my gosh, I still don't know this, I still don't know that, look at your last reflection and see how you felt. And then you'll realize, oh, wow, I am indeed progressing. I've developed a lot from that stage, even only 3 months ago. Okay, so moving away from clinical practice tips and more towards how to achieve academic success in a midwifery degree, I would say that time management is key. So our degree is split 50% theory, 50% practice. And I don't know about anyone else, but when I do a 12-hour shift, I don't feel like coming home and reading a textbook. So it's really important to learn how to manage your time so that on your days off, you have done all of your assignments and are not cramming things in at the last moment. So for us, we do like maybe a month or so in theory and a month or so in placement. And not every university is the same in the way that they organise their course, but look at your course and try to tailor what I'm saying around that. And there will be times where you have an assignment due straight after you come back from a long placement block. But if you know that you're being in placement that entire time, are you really going to be able to dedicate your time fully to writing that essay to the best of your abilities? Maybe not. So it's really important to use your theory times as theory times and to use your placement times as placement times. So when you're in theory, even if you know this essay isn't due for another 4 months, why not start at least creating a plan for that essay now? Even if it is not for a very long time in the future, your future self will thank you for it. And it will be very easier to write that essay in the end when you've given it so much thought now. Okay, so really try to do as much academic work possible in those theory times and use your placement times when you come home or on your days off. Research the things in placement that you didn't quite understand, the abbreviations that they use that you didn't quite understand, the conditions that you heard of that this baby had that you hadn't heard of before. Use your days off in placement to learn those kinds of things, not trying to cram in that essay that you could have done in the time in theory. Another useful a useful resource that I found was the All For Maternity website. Now they have a section called the Student Midwife Journal. And as Sue mentioned, I'm the co-editor of this journal, and they have so many useful resources for students. They have an anatomy and physiology section, which a lot of students mention that they struggle with. And they have over 50 e-learning modules, you know, for different topics relating to midwifery. So I'd really recommend everyone to check it out because it can help not only for assignments, but just for widening your midwifery knowledge in general, which is beneficial for everyone. So now about lectures. I think about lecture preparations, it can be quite hard because you don't really know fully what's going to be said until it's said in the moment. However, you can ask your lecturers if they can share slides with you in advance of the lecture. And that's one big tip I would say, because you can actually print out the lectures and you can do 3 slides per page, and they have little lines on the other side of it where you can annotate. And that's one big tip that I would give, because printing your slides in advance means that in the middle of the lecture, you're not scribbling down anything that's on the slide because you already have that. you can make your time on writing down the additional things that the lecturer is saying. So you don't have to focus on, oh, what's on the screen, let's take that down before they change the slide. You've already got that. You can really listen and comprehend what they're saying. So that's one tip I would give. Now, lectures have taken a bit of a different form now after COVID. They are Zoom lectures, and that's complicated a lot of things. So I did want to let you know a few tips of how to cope with Zoom lectures. I would say my number one tip is don't do them from your bed. As tempting as it might be, don't do them from your bed because you can get distracted. You can do them in your bedroom, but maybe don't do it in your bed. Okay, try to have a set, this is my work environment, this is my rest environment. And that will really help you get into the mode because you're not in a lecture theatre full of all of these students anymore. So you need to hold yourself accountable for your learning now. Another thing I would say is get up and stretch your legs every hour. Otherwise, you won't be able to concentrate. You know, you will get Zoom fatigue, which is a phrase that's been coined recently. Just Zoom after Zoom after Zoom, meeting after meeting, staring at a screen. People are getting headaches. People are getting tired. You need to stand up, hydrate, and move around. And then you can come back refreshed to carry on with that lecture. And my last tip would be, the thing with Zoom lectures is that you can use the chat function, you can raise your hand, so stay interactive. And in person, it can be quite daunting. I find it quite daunting sometimes to speak in front of everyone and ask a question. So the benefit of having Zoom lectures is that you can ask questions via the chat. You might be a bit afraid to say it in front of everyone by unmuting yourself, but you can just say it on to your lecturer directly and they can answer it anonymously. So really make use of interactivity. And that leads me quite nicely onto the fact that I'd like to know if any of you have questions on anything that I've said. So pop a comment in the chat box and all questions will be asked at the end. And on that note, I'll hand it back to
Thanks for watching this video from the Maternity and Midwifery Forum. For more expert opinion and analysis, hit the button below to subscribe.